Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Modern Brewer podcast with me, your host, Chris Lewington. I have a couple bits of great news to share with you. Firstly, those avid listeners who remember episode 1 will recall me bigging up the creator of the intro tune. More likely, listeners will remember Horatio Colombo for episode 6, Should I Leave My Job? Well, he has recently launched his music on Spotify, and as I am sure we are all desperate to find new music to show our friends how cool we are, to find Horatio's new music, you can either search Horatio Colombo into your Spotify search bar or click on the link in my show notes to it. Second bit of good news is I, for the first time, will be heading to CBC in Las Vegas on the 21st of April, 2024. For any of the listeners who are attending, please make sure you hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn or email. Everything is linked in the show notes as always, but this has been like a lifelong dream for me to attend this show. Can't believe it's in Vegas. That's kind of super cool. And I'm just basically really excited. And I think it's a really unique opportunity for me to get to meet and hang out with the stateside listeners or from anyone around the world who's attending CBC. So please hit me up and we can definitely arrange a meet up, maybe have a drink, maybe just see each other at a show, whatever works. I'm really excited to meet some of you people. So yeah, please make sure you hit me up. Now, back to the episode. For those who listened to episode 8 with Tanya on building a lab from nothing, will remember sensory is one of the key pillars of quality departments. And for the most part, it's pretty much free to do. I'm confident every brewer in the world recognizes the importance of sensory. But when it comes to actually executing a sensory program, how scientific are you really approaching it? How well trained are you and your team? How confident are you that you truly understand flavors like mercaptan, isovaleric, diacetyl, butyric acid, and also how to detect them, their origins, and of course, how to control the levels? So in this 2-part episode, I'm going to be joined by sensory expert Jethro Duarte Holman. In the first episode, we're going to discuss how to scientifically approach sensory. No more head brewers influencing the opinion of the group or signing it off by themselves. And in the second episode, we will deep dive into 5 key flavors and off flavors common in beer. Before we get into the episode, let me talk to you about a new, exciting, and actually affordable piece of technology being implemented in craft breweries all across the world. We all know the importance of temperature and fermentation control in the brewery. You wouldn't start a brewery without it. What's funny to me is that fermentations themselves are live, sometimes erratic and unpredictable, yet our fermentation control systems are often rigid, archaic, and operated by manual switches or buttons. Frigid.Cloud is the ultimate fermentation control platform. Adding into any existing cooling and temperature control setup, Frigid.Cloud will allow you to monitor and control your fermentations anytime, anywhere. And when you do get those inevitable erratic or unpredictable fermentations, not only will it alert you, but it'll also allow you to take the corrective action before irreversible damage is done to your beer. But even more than infinite control over your fermentations, Frigid.Cloud will revolutionize the way your chiller cools your tanks. Using a pulse cooling algorithm as well as an automated load shifting, Frigid.Cloud users have drastically reduced their chiller's energy usage, saving themselves thousands in costs while decreasing their carbon footprint. So if you're interested in controlling your fermentations anywhere, anytime, while simultaneously reducing your energy costs and carbon footprint, make sure you check out their free demo app on their website, www.frigid.cloud. There's also a link in the show notes, and remember, this can be fitted into any existing cooling setup. So check it out for free on Frigid.Cloud. Okay, so let's get into this week's episode. I'm really excited to be able to bring you Jethro's amazing experience and personality. He's a really well-respected member of the UK craft beer industry, and his past experience in sensory combined with his passion for it will make for a really educational and fun episode. Off air, we were talking about how podcast knowledge is so important in our modern society. And for me, this episode is a great example of that. So, welcome to the show, Jethro.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good, man, good. We're actually currently sat in Jethro's living room, having a great time here down in Brighton.
This is full tech here.
Yeah, maybe the veils just come down on how cowboy this operation really is.
No, it's homely.
But anyway, Jethro, for the listeners who don't know who you are, if you don't mind introducing yourself, that'd be great.
Hey, my name's Jethro. If you might know me, I currently work for a company called Locker and Brewer Select, and we sell hops and malt and whatnot. So not sensory, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, you might know me from talking hops and stuff. But in a previous life, I used to work for a sensory science company where we trained sensory tasters, trained panels, helped people with some consultancy, technical services in sensory. So sensory was my life for a little while, and previous to that, I worked for about over a decade in some breweries in London that had sensory departments, and worked as part of the lab and the quality team, running sensory programs, and setting up labs as well. So the sensory used to be my main thing. So now we're going to talk about it. How people set up, what they do. But yeah, I live in Brighton. My current job, I look after the south of England selling hops. So I went to the dark side. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it kind of puts you in a cool position, doesn't it? I think not being currently involved in the sensory world.
I think that's why we agreed to do this, is because in my previous job, I worked for a certain company and I would sell those companies stuff.
Yeah.
And if I was to speak to you then, I would have only told you to buy their stuff. It was great, but there's other companies out there that deal in sensory flavors or sensory training, and so I'm kind of a non-bias experienced person now, I think, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that. I think for me, I've been to a lot of talks, I've been to listen to a lot of podcasts in the brewing world, and when it's a sales rep from a company, it's so quick to turn into a sales pitch that actually it would really just make me completely tune out of what was being said and almost go against it. It was just me. So I've always been quite conscious on this, trying to, if we do have a sales rep, there's often a brewer there, sort of try and balance the act a little bit. But this is why I think this one's really good, because, you know, you've got all the excellent experience, but now, you know, you're free.
And I'll point out the bad things as well as the good things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, man, I think you probably just got me on because I like listening to your podcast anyway. So.
Yeah.
I cringed Chris at an event the other day when I was saying that I actually do listen to his podcast.
Yeah.
I drive to customers and I have it on in the car. It's just great listening for like learning a little bits and bobs and picking up things that maybe I didn't do in the brewery. So yeah, he obviously was just flattered when I said that, and he said, "Do you want to come on the pod?" And
it's that easy.
Yeah, it's just flattery will get you everywhere. So hopefully we can chat about sensory in as much depth as we can and be completely unbiased. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah. So I mean, what is sensory? What does it kind of mean to you, and what is sensory?
Sensory is using this like ridiculous super skill that we've all been given, which is to sense things through our eyes, through our nose, through our taste, through whatever, that we often overlook, particularly in the UK, I think, UK brewers. And you can assess so much within a product or about a product that you could do with super expensive equipment within your lab and within your brewery, to really kind of find minute detail when you've fine-tuned yourself or you have put some time and effort into it. And I think sensory is amazing in utilising people and the skills that they have in terms of beer. Just you can really enable to stop disasters, like aid in your process, make better beer, and you know, in terms of brand image as well, like someone is going to drink your beer, so you need to assess your beer in the same way a person is going to, not just under a microscope, which I recommend doing also. So I think sensory for me is the utilisation of people and the skills we have to make better beer, really, if you will. Yeah. But yeah, keep going.
I think it's we always said it was like one of the three pillars of quality. It's like phys-chem, micro, and sensory as well.
I mean, you probably got compliance, but we'll leave that later.
Yeah,
That's
come
the
on.
boring bit.
Yeah. Do you know what? I haven't actually covered compliance yet. Well, that would be that'd be a meaty topic, wouldn't it?
It'd be boring. No, we all shared offices, so I would never want to leave the compliance people out. But yeah, when I worked in my most recent brewery in the lab, we had those three departments as their own department within the quality branch. So yeah, and that's where I was the sensory lead. But dipped my toe into all the others while we were there with people off sick, but we had our own areas.
It's funny to me how scientific two of those three, and I'm going to exclude compliance, two of those three areas are done, but yet sometimes sensory is in a way the least scientifically approached, but it has, to me, the most important ramifications across the brewery. You can detect so many things that you don't have the equipment, or you can't afford the equipment, or the equipment can't measure it to the capability that a human can. Fair and it's such a powerful tool in a brewery, sensory.
I think it's often that they are the same in, like, you know, a lot of the. We're going to talk about our flavours loads in this pod, I'm sure, but I often don't want sensory to just be about the bad things, but I'm just going to use some examples. You might be assessing like acid-producing bacteria of flavours, and that's going to lead on to your conversation with your micro and look at your, you know, plate records, etc. So, like, they are all in one, but I definitely think that you're dealing with people, and people have so many variables and opinions and whatnot, that you do have to sometimes take a little bit more of like a holistic look at it. But yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. There's less exact numbers unless you really drill into it. Yeah.
And am I right in saying that humans can detect more than most equipment can for some of the compounds in sensory?
Let's not say more. Let's say a massive range, or more. There's loads that I think that your equipment in your lab would never even notice, see, or you wouldn't be able to use to know it's there. Do you know what I mean? So if you're not assessing with your nose, like if you base yourself purely off what your Antoine Parr told you, then your beer could tick every single box and get out the door of the brewery, and the moment a customer cracked it open, would be not even receiving, you know, what they picked up. So you definitely, and things in your plating that, like, there's aromas that you could get much before, even with like tiny counts on the plate that you might not notice, that your nose is going to pick up it, and within the process as well. And it's often the case that, for example, we'll probably talk about D-test later, but people are going to be using their like spectrophotometers, and they've spent many thousands of pounds on these to be assessing something that you could just do by using your nose.
Yeah.
You know, which is crazy to think. I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend all the money, because that's fantastic, but you know, cash is king.
Cash is king. I mean, I think we could probably do a whole separate podcast just on why I think IBUs aren't really a relevant measurement. But yeah,
it depends, man. I spend a lot of my time doing those, but yeah. I'll come on for that pod as well.
Or we just slam IBUs for half an hour. That'd be absolutely great. I mean, so for sensory, like, what? Again, we're going to probably take what you said about the holistic approach, but like, what are the key aspects? I mean, are there some rules to follow for sensory?
Okay, so the rules. You're assessing a product, so I think the first rule is the people who are assessing it, like, before you kind of want to talk about sensory, is that you want to talk about training, I think. Like, you wouldn't use equipment that wasn't calibrated, because then your results are worth far less, to be honest. So the first rule, I think, is that everyone doing sensory, or maybe should we even say what sensory is? We already said what sensory is a little bit, but people who are assessing the product, whether that be like in process, like go no-go stuff, or final assessment, need to all be trained on what they should be looking for, or what they should know that can just be disregarded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's a problem, what's not a problem, or what's good and what they shouldn't be looking for. So a lot of my job when I worked for the sensory company was all revolved around training. I think what happens a lot in breweries and whatnot is, so I dabbled in a little bit of whiskey sensory, wine sensory. I even did some vegan meat product sensory.
Really?
Because it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
A tobacco sensory I've done as well. But obviously we're only talking about beer. But we sit in tap rooms often and we talk about different apple aromas we get from things, or we could spend hours poetically talking about something. When I think what's one of the main pillars that I think we should have is a more standardized lexicon, or and that's what training does for you, is that we all know what something smells like because we smelt it and someone told it to us, the smell of bacon. If an alien landed and they'd never seen or tasted, but they just smelt it, they wouldn't have a name for it, but we all know what it is. Or for example, we see the color red and we call it red because someone told us that's what it was. And then we all decided correct. So a lot of the training that I used to do was using flavor capsules for training that were I'm not going to recommend any particular company because there's a few that make them, but they are essentially little capsules, normally like a tiny sugar within it. Looks like an ibuprofen, and it's a pure flavour. So let's use acetaldehyde in this example, housed inside a psychodextrin sugar that dissolves when it goes into beer. This is getting too complicated.
No, this is good.
So these capsules are available to buy, and all you would do for a training is you literally dissolve this powder into the beer. The amount of sugar in there's nothing, you can't even taste that. But the flavour is released, and then your beer will smell exactly of what you put in there. So if you put 2 acetaldehyde capsules in, you're going to get 6 times flavour threshold of acetaldehyde in your beer. You can pass it around the room, everyone can smell it and go, great, this is acetaldehyde, this is it right now. Remember it, think about it, and then next time when you smell it, you've had it, as opposed to just someone describing to you that it smells like a green apple. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of that, and there are other apples aromas in beer and whatnot that people drink and they get confused, or there's a lot of confusion, and the moment you have confused tasters that haven't been trained properly, then you get confused data results and you get people panicking for no reason and whatnot. So I think I've gone so off. What was the question even?
Actually, I've got a question for you. How common did you see before people had the training that they were mislabeling?
All the time. And I think that's why it's a really dangerous game, getting people in your panel who you've not made sure are all on a level. Kind of. I mean, it's good to start anyway and get people in, but often be wary of their results or what they're saying. But yeah, confusions, or people often being really overly critical of product as well. I think it's important to all remember that we are more often than not making good beer than bad beer. Okay, so let's go a little bit into the first thing that you're doing in sensory is that you're stopping disasters a lot of the time. So you're using people together. You're using to stop things from happening. So when you've been trained on things that you know are going to go wrong or could go wrong, if you see them mid-process, you're going to act on it. So you're putting critical control points in, same as you would with other stuff. And then there's also part of it is going to be that you're assessing final product. So you're descriptive profiling, true to type brands on what you've got, making sure that you fit that every single time. That can be used for product beer release, or that can be used for MPD on your products if you also want to. I mean, there's so many aspects of it. We talk about raw ingredient sensory a lot at some point.
Yeah.
But maybe as a timeline we could do. We're freestyling a little bit, by the way, everyone.
I mean, as always, yeah. That's the thing, is we're talking we'll probably focus quite a lot on beer sensory, but there's also, as you said, raw material sensory, water sensory. There's a lot of different sensories you can do in the brewery, in the brewery environment that will all feed into that good quality product at the end. It's a good point. I didn't even, when I was thinking about this episode, I didn't even consider that side of it.
That's what I would recommend. All breweries every day taste their waters. Liquors. People ignore that completely. Looking for any discrepancies in what you might have had from the day before or every single time. because that can happen. I'd recommend that every time your malt comes in, at least just screen it with your eyes, obviously, which you're doing anyway, but taste it, see what happens. And every time your hop supplier comes in, I'm obviously talking about myself here, grill them, check their samples, what's this year's crop year looking like. Might not be the case. The earlier crop year might be better than this year. You don't know until you've got it out on the table and you've had a little sniff and rub, as your pod was called.
Yeah.
When you did it. And the same for every single thing you open. You need to be getting your nose in and you know what you're looking at. And this is really basic stuff that you're doing on your own. But if you really want to go for it, you can get your sensory panel in. You can get people around a table. You can get people in. If you're going high level and you've got the money, you might have a sensory booth suite. You can do blind assessment on your raw ingredients. I'd say to anyone listening to this that if you're not utilising the ASBC methods online, you're probably missing out. There's only not a lot membership to get that, and for example, there's an ASBC method on malt assessment that uses cafetières or whatever, and making those. It's worth checking out. I'm not saying do it every time, but even just as a little brain piece to understand differences between things, and maybe we could talk about SBC later or something.
Yeah.
But there's method. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I think, if we're talking about different points in how we use our noses, there's methods written down for them already. Not just me freestyling from my previous experience.
Yeah. I've used those. There's hop steep and malt steep methods. I've actually used those before when we were doing NPD.
Yeah.
To just try and get an idea of what it would be like. I mean, it's not a perfect.
No, it's never.
But it's better than just relying on what you think something will taste like and what you think combinations what combinations will work.
For sure.
I think it's a lot more accurate than doing that, but still not probably perfect.
In my current life, I work with hop breeders, hop developers, and when we do sensory on new hops that come through, we'll do the dry rub for a while until we work out what we like, but then we'll go to steeping within a Kolsch or something, and again trying combinations, or when new varieties come out, you'll literally be trying one to the other. So those methods are great.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah. For me, in my professional career, I found the training of sensory one of the most enlightening experiences, I think, as a brewer. When you go back to one of my questions, do people commonly mislabel them? I mean, I don't know if I necessarily did, but I was definitely not picking up some pretty substantial flavours in beer that I did after the training. But obviously, I'm a brewer, so who should be involved in sensory and who should be getting trained in sensory?
Good question. Everyone. I think what happens too much in breweries is you have a head brewer who's been a head brewer for a while, or a lead brewer, or someone that's particularly vocal who has an Instagram where they open 5 different beers a week and they love talking to you about it. That's great, that's good, but people listen to those people too often. And just because the loudest person in the room has the biggest voice, it doesn't mean it's the most valuable. And I think there's wisdom in a crowd most of the time, sometimes not, but a lot of the time. So the more noses you can get into the beer, the more you're going to get from it, and the more credibility given to everybody's opinion is really important. I did a training course once, so my training course I used to do, just to put in here to explain a little bit more, would have been run over a course of days normally. In one brewery I worked in, every staff that was on the panel had to do a minimum of 3 days of flavour training, which would have included, let's count up, so more than 400 flavour presentations over the course of 3 days, and that would be constant assessment on what they had got. So what I would often do is you lay out 10 samples in front of someone, you'd introduce them all to every flavour. This is Macaptan, this is Dastol, this is Linol, etc. And then you would train them on a bit, send them out of the room, shuffle the board, and have them come in and say what they had say what was in the cup, basically. So that our training methods were a constant repetition of recognition and assessment. So what that means is, partly it adds a little bit of, you got a bit of skin in the game and you don't want to lose, but it also means that while we're training, we're taking data on everybody every single time, so we know who's good and who's not. So although I just said everyone's opinion is valid, are people who are, let's call them sensory samurais, and their noses are going to be better than anyone's. I think what I'm trying to say here is that I did a training course once. It was a 6-day training course, so you can imagine how intensive that is, probably learning 40 plus flavours that are present in beer. And there was a person on the course who got, I think it was like 98% correct right throughout 6 days, which is insane. And the guy answered the phone in sales ops. He couldn't care less about beer. So those people are really important. Everybody's important. So yeah, I would recommend as many people as you can get involved as possible. I know that's hard. A lot of people who listen to this pod might be from smaller breweries. There might only be a few of you on site. But the more people possible and the more credibility given to people, as opposed to only listening to the loudest voice, is really important.
Another point I was trying to get people involved who aren't the decision makers in breweries is really helpful, because they can be, whether you like it or not, there's going to be some bias if ultimately that decision, if that beer is going to get stopped due to a sensory issue and you detect it and you realised, well, this is for me, I'm talking literally from my own experience, I'd smell something and be like, I don't smell the flavour compound, I smell the problem that's going to happen in scheduling for the next week when I smell this, and it's going to be paused, and then I'm like, my brain's already ran away with what this means to me rather than what it actually is, the beer. And I realised, cottoned on, that I was actually not very useful in a sensory palate in that capacity, because I really found it hard to turn that bias off and turn my brain off to thinking. So I think it's quite important to have a breadth of people, if you can, as you said, not just brewers, but also have those people who are not actually intrinsically linked to what happens in the production.
And it also breeds a really good culture on site that everyone's engaged in the product that's coming out of the other side of the brewery. You don't have to be the person on the brew deck that has a positive change that can be made, or negative something stopped. It's also, what you just said is a really, I suppose when you were saying earlier, what is sensory, wherever possible, it should be blind and without bias.
Yeah.
Because realistically, it shouldn't have mattered the headache that you're going to have, because your panel leader could have been giving you 6-month-old beer instead of fresh beer, and so that wouldn't have been as much of a problem. So maybe something else, that what is sensory, it should be unbiased.
Yes.
People are incredibly susceptible to someone telling you something. It's almost why whenever we try and assess beers, try not to read the can before you drink it, because if someone tells you it smells of passion fruit and pineapple, then that tropical beer, obviously. But also within panel as well, like I used to when I was running panels, I would always try and get people to avoid chatting about what they had assessed in their sensory session, before they spoke to anyone else, because they go in and go, oh my god, there's one of those beers that's failed for whatever, this reason, then everyone's going to come in and mark it down for 5 different beers in there, because they don't want to be wrong, or because they are completely biased. So it should be blind wherever possible.
So I guess we go into, how do you train people in sensory? So I know you talked about earlier having the off-flavor standards, and you gave a little insight to how that looked when you were training people. But if in a let's say a brewery environment, anyone isn't having that third-party training managing it for them, how can they go about starting a training program within the brewery?
I'd say some of the biggest stumbling blocks or roadblocks that people put in front of sensory is often money, because they think that they're going to have to spend all this money on the products for training, which if you can get your hands on them, I highly recommend, second to none, quality. But getting people in the room together and talking about what they're making, what you're making, is really important. If everyone just could put aside, if you don't have anything set up where you talk about your beer other than your head brewer drinks a pint of it after work, if you get everyone together and you sit and you talk about it, and you start to talk about the key characteristics, and you're talking about the hop profile that you currently have. Getting everyone on the same page, setting aside some time that you do it, either once a week or 3 times a week or however much you want to do it. Like if you go to breweries, like I used to work with New Belgium in my old job, and in the States, and they have like 5 people that, or I think 3 full-timers that are running panel all the time and whatnot. But I just need a few of you getting together and discussing, communicating, and at least picking up some reading material so that you know what you should be looking for. Even if you can't get your hands on the flavour to smell it, at least read some of the attributes that you're going to be looking for. I think that kind of answers the question, but
I remember, because I've done the it wasn't you who did administer the training, but I'd done the 3-day course, I think, and a lot of it was association. Again, you touched on it earlier, but that for me was really powerful. So it was, I know you said like, you don't know red until someone tells you, and it wasn't just that. It was like, this is, let's say, I think I just plucked one out of the air. It was DMS, and I think it's like emulsion paint was one of them, and I think people get it as like tin sweet corn.
Yeah,
or
not DMS is an emulsion paint, but keep going anyway.
DMS, what's one I'm thinking of? Tin tomatoes.
Tin tomatoes, yeah. So
that was
sweet
it.
Corn, tin tomatoes.
So sweet corn, I never get it. I get it now, but when it first said, I was like, nah, I'm not getting it. And then the person said tin tomatoes, and I was like, whoa, that is exactly what that smells like to me. Yeah. And then that association was really important for me, because I could be like, if I smelled tin tomato, I mean, it was pretty high level, but if I could smell anything like tin tomatoes, I could be much more sure it was that. Whereas I think DMS and sweet corn was really confusing in my head.
Because that's just what it is for someone. Whenever we were training on that, we often used to do that. Like, you want to add your own story, your own narrative, your own something. It doesn't matter how you get there. As long as you finish saying DMS, it doesn't matter how you recognise or you got there. Like, your olfactory system, so your nose to brain, basically, is incredibly sensitive, as we know, but is directly kind of touching in your head to your limbic system, which is like your memories, emotion, and like kind of like responses, all that to it, like innate stuff. But you find that your nose is incredibly like actionful and emotive. For example, if you smell an old partner's perfume on the train, doesn't mean that they have to be wearing it, but instantly you're like, oh my god, and you either like cry or I don't know, or like you might smell a particular food and it reminds you of a holiday, or you like, your smell can take you somewhere so much. So I would often, whenever you're smelling something, to try and think of what it means for you. I'm just trying to think of some examples when I was learning flavours. So I in my previous jobs, I've done such extensive flavour training on so many different flavours that there's lots of strange stories. Alright, so ethyl hexanoate is like a fermentation of flavour. And I was chatting with a brewer about this the other day who's done some training, and people were talking to me about all the different things, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I was like, I'm kind of getting something. It smells different to the reference sample, but I don't know what this is. I haven't got something in my brain yet. And ethyl hexanoate, people often say like, oh, it's like a really overripe red apple. I was like, yeah, maybe. And then someone said it smells like Red Bull on a student disco nightclub, like carpet floor. And suddenly I was like, oh my god, I'm there. And I've now smelt that on people's beer where they do have fermentation issues. And I go, oh my god, it smells like a student disco nightclub. I obviously don't say that out loud because the customer or the person's going to think I'm absolutely mad. So I go, oh, it's ethyl hexanoate in this product. So, and there's lots of those. Damascene, hop aging product. The characteristics on there are often like blackberry or like blueberry, blackberry, grape, something like that. And actually, the time I got it, I don't smoke at all anymore. I haven't smoked in a long time. But the first time I ever tried a cigarette was a cherry flavoured cigarette on Hastings Beach with a friend. We escaped from a school trip. And I just suddenly said, someone said it's a bit like tobacco as well. And I was like, oh my god, I'm there. And I think there's so many of these things. If you add an aroma to your brain in terms of a memory, or often a joke as well. Sometimes if you add a joke in when you're trying to remember something, it really enables you to, it's an emotion, so you remember it quicker than just saying, this is this, say this constantly, repeat it again and again and again. It's about like getting your own attachment. That got really weird then, didn't it?
No, I think that's one of the things I found really interesting was that that emotive side of, and as you said, because it was linked to your olfactory system. But it's how emotive it actually really is. And I think I go back to the tin tomatoes. I think I can still remember smelling it and going, that's like me cracking that tin of tomatoes and then getting that big whiff. That was what I had, the memory that I was smelling, rather than and it's really weird to explain out loud, but I was like literally smelling a memory as much as I was smelling anything else. And before that I found it really difficult.
DMS is something that I still really struggle to pick up, which is why, again, the power of a team, because you'd probably be much more talented than I would if that was a product. If I wasn't boiling enough and there was still some of that around, I wasn't getting that off, or my malt store was doing a bad job, I probably wouldn't realise or know. DMS is one that you get when you're assessing beer. I recommend anybody kind of look online on the methods of this. As too often do people pick up their beer and they put it straight into the nose. They take the biggest whiff and they go, I'm getting everything. If you're doing sensory properly, you flirt with the beer and you work your way in. So the DMS is something that you pick up. We used to call it the drive-by or tuning the radio. So you're having the beer miles away from your nose and you're passing it by very quickly and gently, or you're smelling it from a distance, and it's more, you'll get it there. The moment you get your nose straight in that glass, it's gonna be really hard to pick up. So DMS would be one that is often missed because people just get their nose straight in, and they're hit with different flavours. It's one of the more delicate ones, let's say, that hits you from afar and not straight away.
And you touched on something that's really, like, a really good point. Is some people are blind to certain flavour compounds, right? So or they basically, their threshold is much higher than someone else's, and it's not, you don't really know that until you do it.
Very much so. I've worked with some people who are really, really talented tasters, far more so than me. That some of them are just like, I'm going to sit this one out, or that you would never sit it out, but their opinions on that might be completely like voided by the panel leader. Although I kind of encourage people to not think about it too much, because some people will instantly say that they can't. They're like, I'm really blind to this, and I would almost try to just pretend you're not to anything. I had a brewer the other day when I was doing some training. I don't do this for a job anymore, but sometimes I offer breweries I work with on hops a little bit of free consultancy if they're. Please don't hook me up if you like. Do not contact me. Anyone.
It's his contact details in the show notes. Free sensory training for all.
But I was training some brewers the other day, just while I was there on one of my visits. And I had some samples, some capsules that they'd purchased, and I was using them with them. And someone was saying they were blind to dust, which isn't that common, to be honest. They were telling me that they were, and that they didn't do the D test for that reason in the brewery. And I was kind of like, I don't know if you've set yourself out too quickly there. Like, I'm pretty sure you probably can. And I did him a massively highly dosed sample, alongside one medium and one none. And sent him out of the room, and he came in and he spotted it straight away. So it was probably just that he's maybe not that good at it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's still there. His threshold's maybe not the same as everyone. And it is the case that some people are amazing tasters. I spoke about the sensory samurai earlier, who did so well in his assessments. But it's like a muscle. It's a skill. You learn it. You get better and better. Like, when I first started training, I was, let's just say, the higher end of average, to be honest. Not a talented taster, but I ended up doing it so much that and putting a lot of effort in that you end up being like, it's a muscle that you have to work and work and work. And whenever you're teaching people on particular flavours, you start high and work low as you get down. I described it as a bit like you get to know a flavour in the same way you get to know a friend in a quiet pub. But as you become better and better friends, you'll be able to listen to them when you're in a late night venue or something, and there's other noises around and there's background noise. Or same as when you learn flavours, you'll learn it. Normally people try and learn it in a really light lager, but if you're doing good sensory training, then by the end of the courses, you'll be learning it in strong IPAs and dark beers and whatnot. That there's a lot of background noise in those. People spend too much time practicing on just they go to the shop and buy Budweiser or something, But I guarantee you that most of the brewers listening to this podcast probably make more flavourful beers, if you don't mind me saying. Sorry, any Budweiser listeners.
Yeah, so have you got any examples of like assessment types in sensory?
Okay, so assessment types that you kind of want to be introducing to your brewery just on a day-to-day. This is funny because I'm aware that some people listening to this might be one-man bands, or they might be working for, brewers that sell something in a supermarket or something. But I already kind of touched on raw ingredients earlier, so there's that. We mentioned water. I'd be basically, the more you can taste your product throughout the process, the better it's going to be, because beer is an ever wonderful changing thing. And I would set up certain, let's call them taste gates, throughout production. So maybe that's at the end of fermentation, maybe a couple of days after a dry hop, certainly before you're going to transfer into your BBT, and maybe before you pack, for sure, because you want to know that what's going to that can, keg, bottle, cask, whatever, is of what it needs to be. I'd say until that point, though, you're probably okay with just doing kind of, some people say stop, go, no go. You're just saying yes, no, this is passable. And at that point in time, you're not assessing, you're not describing particularly, you're not saying like, I'm going to give this all these amazing attributes. You're just identifying what you shouldn't be looking for, and you're saying this is or this isn't. It's also really important, I think, when you're doing taste gates. So a good example of a taste gate might be your D-test, your diacetyl test. So at that point, you're only assessing for diacetyl. You'll have a quick smell of everything else, but you're just saying, is this present, and can I continue on with my process? Probably worth checking for acetaldehyde at the same time at that point, because that's when it's present, but that's another thing. So taste gates would be throughout the process, and if you've, maybe we could link to some sites in the show notes on this that are going to have a list of what you want to be checking for. But you're looking for fermentation of flavours at that stage in time, and you're literally just saying yes, this is good to go, or no. And when we say no, we're not saying no, dump the batch. We're saying no, this needs either more time, or this needs a conversation. So let's call it go and pause. Do you know what I mean? And also remember that if ever you do press pause, don't worry. You're not gonna, like you were saying earlier about having a headache about all the problems that's going to be caused. Unless you are the head brewer, it's not your problem. So what I mean is don't feel the weight of the entire, like at the end of the day, it's only beer. But we need to think about it properly. So let's say go and pause to assess and address if there is a problem. But more often than not, the pause just means we need to spend a little more time on our, and then we'll do the D-test tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll be fine. Or if needs be, we'll need to rouse a tank or something like that. So you're setting a point in time that you might need to make a change. I'd say when you start to get further down the line, maybe when you get into your bright tank or something, you're going to want to do some more like true to target. I think I would probably prefer to say true to brand on your product. So that would mean before you were going to do this, you would sit down together and sort out this is exactly what our product, our brand is that we make, and you can do that in as in-depth or as little as you want. If you have the time and you can do it fully, I do a full descriptive profiling on it, and you can end up with different spider charts for your hop characters and intensity charts, and you can tie that in with with your actual lab tests that you've done on your like the bitterness of the beer, and that can be used alongside, which we used to do in my brewery. We would use full descriptive profiling periodically on a beer to make sure it's not completely strayed, but for beer release we used to just go alongside a program that had generated a description. So it would be like, this beer has some floral aroma, but mainly grapefruit and citrus, and some bitterness that is lingering, and mild sweetness, but it would go through like the visual, the aroma, the taste, and the like general. So I'd say in a bright, you at least want to be doing beer release by just like true to brand. And then after I would head into more of the descriptive stuff with finished product in package. I'd also say that it's really essential that not enough breweries do it is they taste old beer. Like they taste it in the bright. They go, oh god, this is great. Like I'm not surprised. Yeah,
that's such a great job.
Everybody come and taste this. This is great. And people don't stop and think enough of how long it takes for this beer to go into supply chain and get to a customer, and then also sit in a fridge or on someone's shelf for another 2 months. Like when I actually changed some of the policies within the brewery that we had. I said we should keep all the beer for a year, even if it goes out of date in 6 months. Like, fortunately, we had the shelf space, so it didn't make any difference. But it was there if we needed to, and we used to assess it and have fun with it as well. But pick up, schedule in a can like once a month, and see how it's aging. There's like we might talk about some off flavors later, but some certain off flavors that are developed in the brew house that you only see in packaged products. So I would very much encourage shelf life testing, and if you really want to go for all out, I would do ambient and refrigerated as well and see what happens. And with that you could do go no go if you want. Would you buy? Would you not buy? But if you really want it, you could do some more descriptive profiling and rank rate the different hop aromas and whatnot. See how it goes within time. Talk about how much the sweetness increases, because that's essentially when your customer's going to get it. You need to put yourself in the place of the actual drinker, and not us, not we. You are fortunate enough to drink it as fresh as you could possibly ever get it. I actually really guide now. I don't work in breweries because I enjoy my life, but I do miss that point of like sneaking down to the BBTs to get an actual pint.
It's so good.
It was good, man. It was
nothing
good.
better.
Don't get it. I drink.
Nothing better.
Yeah, nothing better. There's other great things about life when you move onwards, but if you work in a brewery, always remember that moment.
Yeah.
It's been good, man. It was good. But yeah, definitely shelf life testing. I suppose another test type that I just keep thinking of test types in my head now. Rank rating is a big one. So just 0 to 10 on different attributes. Yeah, so that's often if you're like laying up an assessment, you can list as many attributes as you possibly wanted to and rank it 0 to whatever. There you go.
Yeah, that's what we used to do quite a lot of, rank rating.
That's right. I suppose this is a reasonably relevant point if you want to talk about software.
Yeah.
Because I imagine you're talking about something different to I'm talking about. I am going to just say on this podcast right now that this is not a sale pitch from me, because I don't work for this company. But there's a piece of software out there called Draft Lab that I'd recommend to every brewer. I don't say buy it. It's fucking expensive if you get the full one, to be honest. But it's incredible if you can afford it. It's mind-boggling. But it's a really good software that you can. I think they've got a free version. You get a free trial, and then you pay more and more the more functionality you get on it. But it's a sensory software for your brewery that you can batch track on it and test it throughout its life, and different test types on there. During COVID, we used it a hell of a lot because it's available on your phone. So tasters could do. During COVID, I actually was sending out packs of packaged products in like Pactex 6-packs of product that the taster at home didn't know was fresh or aged, or that we were watching for a particular quality reason and stuff, and they were still able to do it on their phones. And when within our sensory booths, we actually just had little Amazon pads with their app on it as well. So I'd say if you're looking into some software that you can use that maybe isn't going to cost the earth and be really functional, that's good. You don't need to. Like, I popped to a brewery the other day. I was talking about a customer, and they got out their intense Excel spreadsheets that they were currently working off with every single batch, and it was. Every single batch had its own sheet that then had tabs at the bottom from a template, and it was all their different taste gate points. So batch 2857 had its own Excel, and then a tab at the bottom had, we tasted it here, yes, no, here, yes, no, here, yes, no.
Standard.
Descriptive. I was like, God, this is complicated. But they had everyone wants to do it different, and that's what they developed, and they were probably saving money because they weren't paying for special software. We sat down and made some edits because I was a bit like, this thing's a bit messy, but good for them.
And it can. Do you know? I think a lot of it sometimes when you can't afford or you don't want to spend the money on software, it can become discouraging to not do the actual task. I've got a whole episode on data logging because I know and feel very passionate about how important it is to create data that you can then analyze.
Have you done that already?
That podcast?
Yeah.
Not on sensory software, but it is on data.
Oh God, there's me saying I'm an avid listener.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I'll let Tristan know.
I've only done the good ones. You know? Hops, that's cool. What?
Data.
Yeah.
Boring. Next.
Yeah, sorry. I'll make sure I do go back and listen. It's a really good point though. Like, what gets measured gets managed, and if you're not making note of this, for example, like a lot of what this comes down to is problem solving, and in my previous lines of work, we had many problems. And the moment something happens, same as with everything, you go, okay, so has this happened before? Did it happen in this particular tank? Did it happen at that time of day? Who was on shift when that transfer happened? Oh, turns out it was Jack every single time. And batch tracking with these taste gates and with your final, descriptive profiling, if you are going to go that far, because you're going to want to look back at these and see your trends and whatnot if you can. So yeah. So this is what Cheesy is saying, what gets measured gets managed.
I say it a lot for what I do with brewers also, because it's this that concept applies to literally everything in a brewery. So whether you're managing water readings, for example, if you're managing water, if you're measuring it, you're managing it. If you're not measuring it, then people are like, oh yeah, actually don't look at that. So it's the same thing. It applies to everything in brewing actually.
Yeah.
And then I think I go always one step further. It's like you measure it, and then you also have to monitor it. So you have to have some sort of data recording. So it's great when everyone gets together to do the sensory, but if there's no record of it, it does become, you don't learn from it. In my opinion, you're just losing out on an opportunity to learn down the line.
Just tracking it and sitting down with a lot in the past when I was in the lab, I would meet with the head brewer once a week, and we'd go over everything that we'd tasted as a team that week, and that would lead into brewing decisions or fixing problems or issues or issues. I've opened so many cans in my life. We need to go back. Will it take me back? And no problems to be discussed on this. But yeah, go on.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up this episode of the Modern Brewer Podcast. But don't worry, everyone. Jethro is going to be back on the next episode, where we're going to be discussing in depth on some flavors you might detect in beer, and also some common mistakes in sensory. So it should be a nice deep dive into the actual compounds themselves. So thanks so much for listening to this episode. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Modern Brewer Podcast.